topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, Illinois. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show. We have, for the last 16 years, we have brought you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Hey, today we are going to be talking about tax relief and a little bit of bankruptcy. We normally split the show up, but we got so many letters when people saw that the tax relief show was coming up today for Illinois that most of the show today is going to be on tax relief, just due to how many letters you all have sent in. Let me welcome you to our great expert attorney, Kevin Benjamin. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. Listen, I didn't warn you that we got all these letters from listeners on tax relief. So most of the show is going to be on tax relief. And what we do with the tax relief show is we replay it again throughout the month. So maybe it's better that we're doing just strictly a tax relief show. First of all, Kevin, I'm seeing the numbers, especially on YouTube. More and more people are listening to the show. Tell people about your firm.
Well, thank you. Kevin Benjamin. The firm is Benjamin Legal Services, or some people call it Benjamin Law because that's the domain we use. We do foreclosure issues, litigation, bankruptcy, Chapter 7, 13, Chapter 11, business and individual restructurings, and tax resolution, IRS tax controversy, settlements with the IRS, states also, but mostly IRS resolution.
Well, I got to tell you that we actually got someone who wrote us about property tax. I didn't know if you handled that at all, but I sent him your contact information. But today we're going to be mostly talking about tax relief. And Kevin, I haven't shared this with you yet, but a lot of the letters we're getting, people are so impressed with your total honesty. I mean, you just tell it the way it is, and people really appreciate that.
Well, thanks. I try to be blunt and direct, and not waste people's time, and hopefully people don't waste my time as well.
Great. Well, let's get to the questions because we've got so many of them. We're going to start off with Greg. Greg said, "I just found your show in December, and I was looking forward to watching more of your shows. Will you handle all communications with the IRS and Department of Revenue?"
Yes. So what happens is when someone calls for representation, I give you an example. I always try to give examples. I'm talking to a person right now in Wisconsin, and there's different, I do things other people don't do, right? So I do resolution. You got to be a CPA attorney or what they call an enrolled agent. But I also do bankruptcy. And sometimes taxes are chargeable in bankruptcy, and sometimes there's not. And I'm also a member of the U.S. Tax Court. So I can analyze someone's case. My job is what are your options, the pros and cons of each, help you make an informed decision. So I have a gentleman thinking about bankruptcy, but I haven't really analyzed him yet. I'm explaining taxes sometimes are dischargeable in bankruptcy, but it's not a matter of owing, in his case, $500,000. You got to break it down to what year. There's assessment expiration dates, collection statute expiration dates, bankruptcy discharge dates, and I have to analyze the whole thing. So I either get what's called a Form 8821, authorization to release information if I want to get a copy of the IRS transcripts and just a copy of their file, analyze everything. Or there's a 2848 form, which is the power of attorney. Okay. So now to answer this person's question directly, yeah, if we have a power of attorney on file, we're representing you, they're going to talk to me, right? I had someone just hired me. They're in the IRS criminal division. And within a week, we were downtown talking to the two agents from the criminal division. She was scammed. We got them to believe that, so it's going to be okay. She still got 50 grand debt to resolve, but now we go to the civil division, which is the normal stuff. It's just money, and you work it out. On the 8821 authorization, then you're not representing them. So the IRS wouldn't always talk about everything with us. I just get the information. So, but yeah, if you retain me, we file the power of attorney. I'm your representative. That's exactly why you hire me, hire somebody else. So you're not talking to them. You only go with me to the IRS if I tell you you're coming. Otherwise, I have hearings with meetings with the IRS. I don't bring my client. I mean, sometimes if there's a reason, okay? But otherwise, I handle it. Phone calls, letters, everything.
Okay. Charles in Joliet, what are your responsibilities during the process with the IRS?
Well, my responsibilities as your attorney is to represent you to the fullest extent of the law. It's basically the Internal Revenue Manual, and the IRS will resolve your tax issue for what they call the RCP, the reasonable collection potential. That's the negotiation, okay? And how much you owe and where you are in the collection process. Are you with the revenue officer or revenue agent, or just automatic collections, or different division, or criminal, right? That'll dictate how many documents we need, or how are we doing a streamlined program, or which program are we even doing. So my job is to have the contact with everybody at the IRS, know where you are, have the communications, then I communicate with you on what I need, information, what documents I need, and then I'm having exchanges with the IRS on maybe questions on some assets or something like that. I'm talking to you so I answer the questions. And that's really it. Oftentimes people aren't really that deep in there. Maybe with automated collections, we just got to resolve something. So there's pros and cons on that too. Because automatic collections, you're on the phone on hold for 2-3 hours before you even get anybody on the phone. Sometimes it's nice, at least for me, if you have a revenue officer or agent assigned, I got someone who answers the phone usually, or gets back to you pretty quick. Otherwise, the automated system is a lot of newbies. They don't always know what's going on. They don't, they may hang up on you, give you a courtesy disconnect. All that kind of stuff. So
imagine, Kevin, having a business to run, and you try to get a hold of the IRS.
I'm sorry, I missed part of that question.
Okay, so people who are running a business and they try to reach the IRS, and they have no idea that how long they could be on hold for. Whereas if they hire a firm like yours, they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, and going back to the example I was talking about on this person this week with the $500,000, he actually called the IRS for some reason about something else. Because he owed us for like 10 years, you know what I'm saying? Though he just got assessed 3 years ago, so it's not going to be expiring. And they said, well, since we have you on the phone, that's kind of how it started, he said. So he kind of poked the bear, so to speak. And then he's like, well, they gave me 5 days to so-and-so. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, I could file a power of attorney and take over today, you know what I'm saying? But they're all worried about these made-up deadlines. They're not always made up. On the phone, they're saying one thing. You get certain letters, attempt to levy, and that kind of stuff, and there's deadlines, and there's also appeal rights, collection due process appeals, that kind of stuff. So there's ways to handle things and stop levies and garnishments and get a hold on things. I don't recommend bankruptcy for people unless it's an option. I mean, my job is, I just tell you what the deal is. I'm saying, I mean, sometimes people don't want to file. It's fine. I'm just telling you what's dischargeable or not. But when I say, you're getting rid of $100,000 or $200,000, they say, well, hang on, maybe we're doing, or maybe you're doing a 13 restructure or something like that. But oftentimes you can do either an installment agreement or a partial pay installment agreement, or an offer in compromise if you qualify. A lot of people are worried about statistics. Like this gentleman was trying to quiz me the other day. Well, people say they, a lot of them are turned down. Yeah, I think maybe 25% or less go through. Why? Who cares why? The reason why is because people pound the airways with these national scam IRS resolution people that have call centers probably in a different country, just getting your money. Everyone's saying, it's fresh start and, programs people don't know about, and everyone qualifies, right? Just give them your credit card. And then people are submitting stuff that you don't qualify for, so that the numbers go down. Who cares? We only care about your case. Okay. Right. So you may qualify for an offer. You may qualify. Sometimes a partial pay installment may be better financially than an installment agreement, right? So that's my job, is to analyze all the options so we know where we're going. What's plan A, plan B, sub 1, sub 2. I'm the quarterback, reading the defense, taking down the field to get to the end zone, which is just resolve the matter. And again, as long as you're not in the criminal division, if you are, I can take care of that too. But most people aren't. And it's a matter of resolving the money. The IRS wants the money. They want to get paid. Okay. And it's not a matter of saying, hey, I'm a lawyer, I'm just going to snap my fingers and they're going to jump. No, it's a negotiation, but it's a negotiation on your assets, your liabilities, or sometimes that's why I do a partial pay installment instead of an installment agreement, instead of a offer in compromise, because sometimes in an offer in compromise, part of the formula or the negotiation are certain assets. I've had people call me, offer. I'm like, 2 questions. I'm like, you don't qualify. You got a $300,000 equity in a property. Ultimately, no. However, partial pay installment agreement, some assets aren't included. There's different analysis. That's why you have a professional. Okay, it's just a matter of opening the IRS letters, getting someone like myself, a power of attorney on file, and then we just start resolving the issues. I've had people. And the IRS is not a quick thing, right? But as long as it's being resolved and I'm on the case, right, at least there's communication. We know what's going on. I have some files going on for months. I just doing status calls with my clients. Or you submit something, it takes a while for them to get back. That's fine. At least, everything's, okay, right? And we're working everything out. So, and you have somebody protecting you. That's me.
Yeah. Kevin, we get a lot of letters. I just took one basically saying, this is from Elgin, Kellyanne Elgin. I guess it's a she. She says, I know you have a fee you charge, but what if I can't pay the IRS?
Can't pay the IRS what?
I guess she's behind on her taxes.
Well, I mean, how much? I'm saying, people.
It doesn't say.
The service is not free, and it's not a set fee either. I don't really do hourly on the tax resolution. I try to avoid that. It'll either be a set fee or a set fee I can make maybe a few payments on, or depending on someone's situation, it may be a set fee down and some kind of monthly thing because everyone's situation is different and we don't know what we're getting involved in yet, or the client. So, for example, I don't want to quote a fee, and then it's all of a sudden it's a lot more work than everyone thought. So you try to be fair and reasonable. Also, sometimes it can be resolved quickly. So why give me a higher fee if I could just, resolve it in a month or two, then you're done. I did less work. But if it takes longer, it takes longer. So there's a combination of that we could do. I don't do hourly.
Well, I think she says she knows you have fees and she doesn't have a problem with that. Her problem is, what if I can't pay my taxes?
Well, first of all, you're paying me because you're not paying the tax till I resolve it.
That's true.
And if we're doing an offer and compromise, you may not be paying a whole lot, right? Or if we're doing an installment agreement or a partial pay installment agreement, you're making small payments. So you're not always, the only time you're paying a lump sum, I mean, if you're paying your tax in full, you don't need me. You're just paying the bill, right? But if you're making a lump sum or over a few months, that's going to be a discounted probably offer and compromise or a partial pay. So it's not a matter of, oh, I owe $1 million or $100,000, I can't pay it. Yeah, maybe you're paying 5,000. You're saying maybe it's over a couple of months. So you can, that's what I'm trying to say. But it's not a matter of paying the IRS up front. When I put my power of attorney in, we're not giving the IRS a check. We're trying to find out how much it's going to be. I know what they're saying is what you owe, taxes, interest, penalties, that kind of stuff. We have the breakdown, and maybe some people qualify for penalty abatement also. Sometimes a lot of that money is just late fees and stuff like that. Sometimes it can be abated. That's a big help as well. But then again, if you're doing an offer and compromise, what's the difference? Because you're just compromising the amount owed. So I wouldn't worry about that. Just worry about having representation, so they're not coming after your assets, leaning things up, and things of that nature. And then once you make it, then once it's resolved, then you're not paying me anymore.
Right.
So,
This is from Craig in Naperville. He said, I really enjoy your show. I saw a commercial, I guess it was a national commercial the other night, where a man was saying that he owed the IRS $1.2 million, and this company got him off for $100. Okay. Is that really true?
Well, I mean, I didn't hear the commercial, and it's probably an actor, and it's probably on the commercial, small print that this is just a rubber, Here's the scam part, okay? And I always tell clients, they advertise on the radio, we settle for pennies on the dollar. No, you don't. Okay, you don't. That's not how it works. You may be getting pennies on the dollar, but I don't call hey, I'm going to get you pennies on the dollar. I'm a master negotiator. Mr. IRS, hey, I'm offering 7 cents. You're offering, let's start negotiating. That's BS, okay? It's the reasonable collection potential, assets, liabilities, what counts, what doesn't count, what go over values. What can you pay? Maybe you're making a lot of money before. That's why you owe the money, but now you don't have that job or that business anymore. You only pay what you can pay, right? So you settle for the number. Let's say it's $10,000, and then let's say we come to an agreement with the IRS. Reasonable collection potential is $10,000. Okay, if you owe $100,000, I just settle for 10 cents on the dollar. If you owe $1 million, I settle for a penny on a dollar. So the more because it's still 10 grand, right? So that person owes $1.7 million, right? They may get a penny on a dollar a thing, and you can do $100 maybe. You're saying maybe that was it, right? But the more you owe, it looks good. Oh, I settle for pennies, but it's the same dollar amount. It's 10 grand, and if you owed 20 grand, it's 50 cents on the dollar. It's still $10,000. So that's just kind of something they put on the radio. These commercials try to entice you to hire their call center. When they tell you they have a team of attorneys and CPAs and they're just rocking and rolling, man, they got a whole team of people. No, they don't. Okay, anybody. They put an ad in Craigslist, blah blah blah, try to find guys so they can farm things out too, or maybe some of them, different companies do different things. I'm saying, but none of the companies have their name on the door. They're all like ABC or these generic names. So when they go down, they just change the name and it's something else. They're just call centers, right? They're volume. They pay millions of dollars in marketing. How do you think they pay for that? By solving your problem? No, by getting more people. So they got people trained to get your credit card and payments and scare the hell out of you and go from there. So someone like me, I'm handling your case, right? I give you my direct line. Doesn't mean I'm answering my phone every minute you call. Okay. So, but I mean, there's an office line. We have an online file for secure communications. I have a text number you have in my direct line if you don't abuse it, right? So there's ways to communicate. Also, there's ways just to get on my calendar because sometimes we need a status call or something like that. So it's not a matter of just call me, because the chances of you just calling me in that second I'm doing nothing is nothing, but we can schedule a call. That's why a lot of times, like, if I need something, I'm not even playing phone tag with you, right? I may be sending you a text, or I may send you a secure message from our portal. So, when you're getting it, hey, I need this document, or, give me a call. I talked to the IRS, let's schedule, So we're organized moving forward, not just Mickey Mouse spinning around with your head chopped off. Organize everything. And a lot of it is online. I mean, I have online systems. When I need documents from you, you're going to scan them and throw them in there. If you can't scan them, you can get them to me, I'll scan it. But, it's not, don't be taking pictures of your phone and texting me a picture of a page with your thumb in the middle of it, and, all that kind of stuff. And that ain't going to work. Okay. I want a clean copy. I'm a professional. You got a problem. If it's too hard for you to get me what I need, then hire somebody else, right? They'll be sending me, like, people, like, I ask for a document. It's all the time, not all the time, but on a regular basis. You just sent me 67 JPEG, and the JPEG is JPEG 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not even named. So I'm supposed to open those up and figure out what page is what, and compile a document. No, it's not happening. It's not what you're paying me for. You pay me for my experience and expertise to resolve an issue, not for every minute of my time, or not a clerk, right? So most people comply. I'm just saying some people, you got a problem with the IRS, if it's too hard for you to get me a document, which you could fax, scan, FedEx, drop off at the office. If you really have a problem, I'll scan it. I'm not going to scan it when you walk in. Say, hey, Joe Schmo's here. Oh, let me just start scanning, or someone's going to start scanning documents. I'm saying, don't be giving me any originals. I'm saying, I'll scan it and I'll shred it, and now I have a PDF, and that's that, right? So that's easy to do.
This is a great question. Actually, he's got several questions here. This is from Ron in Chicago. What is the difference in hiring a CPA and a lawyer like yourself to handle negotiations with the IRS?
Well, that's kind of a generic question. Who's the CPA and who's the attorney? What's their background and experience? To resolve it, a lot of the civil negotiations, if you're, again, EA, which is an enrolled agent, attorney, or CPA, to be able to negotiate with the IRS. But that doesn't mean every CPA or every attorney knows how to do it, right? So if you're a CPA and you're very experienced in doing, these programs, that's fine. I'm saying, if you're an attorney very, very experienced, that's fine. The difference with me is some people need other things. Like I have a lot of clients, even businesses, they don't have the payroll tax or the sales tax issues, or the employment tax issues. So sometimes they may need a corporate Chapter 11. I had 2 calls last week. Hey, they're shutting me down at 4:00. Well,
Oh, yeah.
You could have called a little earlier.
Yeah.
But that's a Chapter 11. I need an immediate filing if that's what's happening. I'm saying, and that's a state. That was a state one, right? Because they're shut down for the sales tax. And sometimes in the federal, you have the taxes that are withheld from your taxes that people don't take, right? And then the employers don't actually give it to the government. You know what I'm saying? So it reminds me of that. Who's that guy? One of the mobsters had that gas tax scam going decades ago. Michael, his name escapes me. It's a good podcast, right? It was one of the biggest scams ever. It's a white collar scam. It's not killing anybody, right? They would buy these gas stations. They figured out, you pay the gas pump and you're taking the tax money, so they just keep it. And the government was so slow getting it. And the time they get it, they just start another company, and it's like a shell game, right? And the guy's making millions of dollars. I mean, so it's kind of, that's, you can't do that, right? So sometimes people, like, you have 30 employees and you got the payroll tax, maybe you kind of borrowed it. I mean, I have a case in Wisconsin right now. Part of the issue was a tax thing, and the money was used for something else. I mean, so you got to pay it back, and you got to get juice on interest on it. But that was referred to me, that one. the IRS wasn't working something out, so they have a lot of assets and receivables, and they shut them down. So they needed an immediate filing. So I got in there, and I'm doing Wisconsin Chapter 11, immediately back in business. IRS first said no. I had to give him a call and said yes, because I'm the attorney, and not only my attorney, I actually filed the case. I'm saying it's called the automatic stay. It's called federal law. Let me educate you on what I'm going to do if you don't immediately release. So it's resolved. I'm saying so, but that's not but they were wrong. I'm saying that's what Chapter 11 is for. It's like to restructure and be in business and stop them from shutting down, because they were taking all the receivables. Now we'll pay them over time instead of, just taking all their money. And there's like 24 employees, right? So now their jobs are saved, right? So, and that's not on your personal thing. So, so it depends. Like in my case, I'm a member of the U.S. tax court, right? See, to be in the U.S. tax court, you got to be an attorney. There is a way to get in if you're not, okay? Most people don't, right? But I've been in since like 1990, right? So I could do things CPAs can't do, but not everyone needs that. So I'm not trying to say, hey, don't call a CPA. I'm so much better than everybody. But I could do things. Maybe you need bankruptcy. Maybe I could discharge you in bankruptcy. They can't do that. Maybe you need U.S. tax court representation eventually. Maybe you have the appeals rights. I mean, it's like litigation. I'm saying if I'm a litigator, I'm federal court. Got my trial license. I got experience. What happens in litigation, right? You do discovery, right? Document, doing discovery with the IRS. You're negotiating, right? You're making your arguments, right? You're preparing. So that's all part of a trained attorney. Doesn't mean a CPA with a lot of experience can't be at that level, right? But a lot of the CPA, my dad's a CPA. I love my dad. He's a great guy, right? Actually, 20, 30 years ago, when I had an experience with the IRS, my dad represented me in my business.
Wow. I never knew that.
It was back in the 90s, right? So, yeah. Another funny story was I actually moved to Florida for a while, right? So I started the firm in Chicago when I was doing things in Florida, not debt arbitration, outside trying to restructure things outside of bankruptcy and stuff like that. And so I have clients in Chicago still that I have to maintain, right? But I wasn't like taking new business, right? And my firm was doing business, but then when I, was closing that down, we weren't doing as much. And I guess the IRS is a favor where they're kind of estimating my taxes, right? That's my first experience with estimated taxes. So I don't know what they're talking about. I'm getting these letters. How do I have payroll tax? I don't have any employees anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it's got to be, this is, in the 90s, right? So funny story was my dad got involved, and then there was a person on one of the notices one time, right? So I got involved eventually one time, and I called the person, right? And he's like Kevin Benjamin, right? Yeah. Chicago, yeah. It's like, you were my attorney. You did my case. Like, oh, how you doing? So he's like, oh yeah, we were just, you're doing me a favor estimating stuff. Okay, stop estimating, right? Yeah. And it was resolved quick. Obviously, we file some things, get some paperwork going on. That's all it was, right? But that was my first experience with the IRS. Plus, I was doing a lot of bankruptcy stuff back then, and people got tax issues, right? So I started getting involved in. Plus, I had my self situation. I'm like, oh, this is interesting, because bankruptcy is like the U.S. bankruptcy code and the bankruptcy rules, right? And the IRS manual is the IRS manual, the IRS code, right? Then we have a means test and a liquidation analysis in bankruptcy. What's not exempt, non-exempt, and then in IRS it's the same thing. There's IRS standards, and then you're arguing valuations and how much, and does this really count, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, so it just kind of just coincided. And then also sometimes people could discharge in bankruptcy, and then sometimes the filing, not because of the taxes, they had to file for some other reason. Then the IRS would send letters, hey, your client filed Chapter 7, no problem. They owe us X dollars. It's not dischargeable, and 4 or 5 months when the case is over, we'll be a talk or whatever. So then you get rid of everything else, and now you can resolve the IRS issue. And I got to change the circumstances too, right? You also have a hardship. So now, now you can focus on that. So that was my experience. I'm like, in the IRS, like people got a lot of, even that back then, a lot of IRS debt never changes, right? So that's how I got into this. And then over the years with technology, because, back then in the 90s or 2000, before the internet really, it'd be harder to do because you're running multiple things where, like, we used to, even for bankruptcy, used to go run down to the courthouse and file the cases by 4:00. Someone's losing their house. Now you just push a button 24/7. You got, software helps and these Zoom calls, I'm saying, online portals for documents instead of having, all this busy work for nothing. So with the technology, it's easier to streamline and combine things, which is kind of what we did and got into it. Got more into tax in the 2000s when COVID came. A lot of bankruptcies stopped because all the COVID rules, no foreclosures, all people's arrears are being forbeared. No one can sue anybody. No one's getting garnished. Everyone's getting unemployment checks more than they're making. No one needed me. What I'm saying? So, but the IRS was still around, right? So we started focusing more on that, and this kind of made us part of the firm, but also kind of set up a different company sometimes for that as well. And it's still me, and we still, everything goes through us. When I represent somebody, it's not the tax company or the law firm, it's me as the attorney. So my power of attorney, it's I have a CAF number with the IRS, right? So that's how they associate me and they prove me, just like a CPA would have one or somebody else. So it's an individual number associated. It's not like I represent you, and maybe it's in my firm, maybe whatever, but I am the responsible party as the attorney. I can't just like leave and say, oh, the firm, you may be paying the firm, what I'm saying, but right. I'm not on the power of attorney myself. Right now I'm not doing underlings on that. I'm handling your case, and that's the difference between me, not necessarily a CPA, but the big firms. You got someone to talk to who's actually knows what they're doing and is handling your case, not just someone calling and saying every time you call, you get someone else and no one knows what's up because they're just looking for the next case. I'm saying, because they got to pay for the marketing. So we have clients. I don't do heavy volume. We just do people who need help.
You don't have an intake person. You're going to be handling it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I have people if I need it, but honestly, the intake, I give you a link, I give you a bunch of questions. So you kind of filling it out. Then I look at it. Now we have a call. So even for bankruptcy, I used to have the whole team of intake people. Now with the internet and stuff like that, here's the things, fill it out. I download it. I look at it. Now I have the information. Right now, I could answer your questions. Like, again, people do this. And again, a couple of days ago, guys like, well, how much to charge for bankruptcy? $500,000. I'm like, I've been talking to you for 30 seconds or a minute. I don't know. Well, some other guy told me $4,000. One guy told me 19,000. Blah blah blah. So I'm not saying I'm charging $20,000 or even $2,000. I said I don't have a set fee. I talk to you and I determine how much work it's going to be.
Right.
Quote you a price and you say yes or no. And that's that. Don't call me. And people on the sevens. Well, how much? I don't, because you're saying there's no problem. It's easy case. How do I know? I didn't even know you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
How do you know it's easy? Because when I start saying things that you don't even see, what I'm saying, or catch you in lies, who knows? So I just don't. I say just call someone else then. And by the way, if the guy was doing 419, why didn't you hire them? The guy for 4. What are you calling me for? Right? So some other guy called yesterday, the lawyer wanted to refer me something. And then, oh, by the way, this, let me ask you a question. Someone did this on Chapter 7, this lawyer, that's malpractice, right? And blah, 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 blah. I'm like, so you had a case in 2021, you're going to just babble for 30 seconds on the phone with me? And this guy's a lawyer, right? And you're going to be saying, this is malpractice, this is wrong. So you're actually saying all the answers already. I have no idea. Unless you hired me to look at someone's file, right? I don't know what that attorney was advising someone in 2021.
Right.
And by the way, the whole thing wasn't because it's like the whole issue was like stupid. So I'm like, if you're worried about X, it's like it's an easy fix. You know what I'm saying? So there's no damages. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like, everyone has their opinion, and it's like, trying to tell me, instead of having a consultation where you're asking me for my opinion, sort of telling me they want me to affirm it, and then Kevin said this. No, I'm not going to attack some other professional without facts. So
let me go to Rita. She's in Chicago. She said, I'm really enjoying your show. I just found it last month. I'm so glad to know that you're in the Chicago area. I have a business, and we never know when we're going to run into an IRS problem. And I like the way you communicate. My question is, can your firm get the IRS to remove penalties and interest on taxes that I owe?
Well, again, that's a general question. Penalties, I was talking about before, penalties can be abated, not automatically, right? So the answer is yes, if you qualify for it. It's not a matter of just saying, hey, please do this, right? You got to qualify for it. And of course, we'll look into that for you. That's part of my job, right? So, but it's not automatic.
Okay. Trent in Chicago wants to know, what should I do if I'm being notified by the IRS that I'm being audited?
You probably should call me. You're in Chicago? I'm in the West Loop. We could do a Zoom call too, but I wouldn't do an audit yourself. I could represent you in the audit, because you don't want to be answering questions like they're your friend. Okay, when they're asking you a question, they're asking you a question for a reason, and they're not always asking the question for a reason to get the answer, trying to maybe set something up, right? So you don't want to get yourself in trouble. Get representation. Call me.
Yeah, Kevin, I've learned from your show that it's not a good idea to talk to the IRS yourself.
No, it's never a good idea to talk to anybody in litigation. You always should have representation. The first thing they tell you in law school, one of the first things is, what's the term? An attorney has himself for a client's got a fool for a client, whatever, something like that. So, not that I've ever made that mistake in my life, because people think you're so smart, but you need representation, right? Because even myself, sometimes I in the past haven't done that, right? But the reality is you really should have someone else, even though it's you, because the person represents you. That's what representation is. Washes out for what you're going to say or not say. It's a little buffer. Also, like sometimes in litigation, especially, it's easier sometimes the flames get higher, but oftentimes it goes lower. Okay, now you got people just talking and resolving things instead of people with personal disputes, having the emotions and going at it. And that's the problem with you if you're a lawyer and the client, is sometimes you're not talking like a lawyer because you're the client too, and you're like, hey, screw you. You know what I'm saying? I'm not doing that. You're screwing me up. So you got to be smart. So you always have representation for the IRS, especially the IRS. Criminal, if you're in litigation, yeah, you can be pro se. I get people pro se's all the time. Kevin, can you take over? A lot of lawyers won't take over pro se cases. I'm not saying I automatically do. I have one right now. A guy gave me a nice retainer. I looked at it. I'm like, it's actually going to be dismissed, I think, next week. I say, you know something? That's good, because it's going to be easier for me to start over than to fix all the crap that it was a mess, right? And it's going to save the guy a lot of money too. So, my job is to solve problems. Obviously, I want to get paid, but my job isn't. People don't call me to say, "Hey, Kevin, how much money can you make off me?" Right? Can you help me?
Yeah.
And if I'm giving value for the price, then people are paying it. Not just paying it automatically. So, and that's why I'm not saying I'm expensive. I'm not saying I'm cheap. I'm not, right? But I'm not always the cheapest person. People call and say, well, I'm talking to so-and-so and so-and-so. I'm like, listen, I don't know what they're charging you. I don't care. Right. I'll tell you what, well, they call someone a price. Well, so-and-so, then hire that person. I don't know what maybe they're as good as me and they're doing it cheaper. I don't know. They know their business. They know their value. I know my value. I know my price, and I don't know what you told that person, right? Because sometimes what happens is people, like someone comes to me, maybe for bankruptcy, and I'm saying, we can't do this and this, or because they went on Google and they think they're so smart and they didn't even go to law school, right? And I'm like, I can. I'm like, no, you can't. Here's what's going to happen. Well, how come they can't do that? So I'm not going to argue with you. I'm telling you what's going to happen, and they can't, right? Oh, Kevin, we'll get back to you later. Now they're calling somebody else, right? They don't mention those facts, right? And vice versa. People call me, yeah, you talked to 2 or 3 lawyers already, right? Okay, I'm wondering, now I know why you're calling me. What are you not telling me that you weren't telling these other people, right? Because now they think they know what not to say. And what I experience is, help me help you, right? I mean, I've had clients, first of all, there's attorney-client privilege. Sometimes there's exemptions for that, but, tell me stuff. Help me help you. How am I going to defend you? And don't lie to me, man. I'm in court. Sometimes on litigation stuff, and I'm fighting for somebody, and turns out I'm flat wrong because someone lied to me.
Yes.
I had a bunch of attorneys one time, a U.S. attorney, and they elect my client in a Chapter 11 case, and I'm fighting, I'm sticking for my client, right? And they said, I told them, I need a date on this thing. My client's in Florida. We're taking his kid one of the school's going somewhere. He's one of the chaperones, right? Oh, Kevin, really? Email, is this your client? He's in jail. I'm like, what? Got a hold of his wife, then I got a hold of him. I'll drop you like a hot potato, man. I'm fighting for you, and you lied to me? First of all, I don't care what you did. You got a criminal lawyer for that, right? I'm not judging people. I'm trying to do my job, right? And you hamstring me. Now you make me look like a fool, which makes me look weak. Yes. Also, how about my reputation next time I'm doing battle with these people, right? So he apologized, and we got it done. And I'm actually like, don't ever do that. That's just one example. I mean, we have a case. My wife was my partner just last week. She's doing it's a Chapter 13. She's doing the meeting, and I know the situation. I know there'll be 3 lawyers on this case. I know what's happening, right? And I know it's going to be an issue, and she knew because I told her. And but I also knew the guy's lying to me about something, right? And then we figured out what it was, and I had to tell this guy. I could really, and what the funny thing is, we're probably going to wind up suing this bank. This is going to be a good case, actually. Okay, they are screwing this guy so bad. We're going to zap these guys. But he just told me stuff in the beginning. I could have been, already had it filed already. You know what I'm saying? But people they're afraid, like, if I tell you you're going to leave. Well, I'm going to find out, right? And of course, if you're not cooperating, on a litigation case, I have to withdraw, or if I'm not taking my advice, I have to withdraw. Now, IRS stuff is not like that. I mean, I'm not saying if you go to tax court or appeal, but there's not the cooperation is giving me the information. You know what I'm saying? You're not, I'm not taking you to the meeting. You're not on the phone with me and talking to the IRS. I'm just resolving the issues, and then you're going to sign the stuff and make the payment. That's why you're separated. You got the buffer, so to speak, right? You have representation, right? So it's not adversarial as far as that goes. They just want the money, and they want to know the money that we're doing is what it is. Because the IRS is tasked to accept the reasonable collection potential, the RCP. That's their job, right? Take the money. They're not a criminal organization. I mean, they have a criminal division, right? But that's fraud. That's now you need a lawyer. That's litigation. Now you better be stuff. You know what I'm saying? But otherwise, it's like it's just resolving financial matters with a powerful entity, the IRS, who's got all the tools in the world. And if it's a tool they don't have to use, then Congress would just give it to them because it's the government. Okay. So, they're a powerful collection agency. They can do things that other people can't do. They can do things without a court order. Garnish, lobby, they don't have to go sue you and get a judgment first. So they're powerful people. They're not the ones you want to take on yourself, or you want to owe money to. Owe money to somebody else. Owe money to the credit card company. Let them sue you and get default just and try to chase you around, right? Not the IRS.
Kevin, one of the many things I love about your firm is I've been doing this for 16 years, and I'll see law firms, their shingle will say they do personal injury, criminal law, bankruptcy law, business law. You just concentrate in bankruptcy law, tax relief law, and I have learned over the years that firms like that are the best ones, rather than the ones that say they specialize in 10 different areas of law.
Yeah, and even saying what you just said, it sounds like it's more than because it's all. My point is, it's kind of all the same, because the tax and the bankruptcy coincide.
Right?
But the foreclosure stuff coincides, because I could resolve it in Chapter 11, Chapter 13, or litigation, defense. So yeah, it's tax, or even bankruptcy. There's Chapter 7, 13, 11. But it's a matter of you have the tax issue, or the debt issue. You need a restructuring or eliminate whatever. I have the tools other people, even some other lawyers, can't do what I can do, because
right.
They can't. Some bankruptcy lawyers don't do. A lot of them don't do Chapter 11. Some won't even do 13s. Some only want to do 7s. I'm saying some don't want to. So they won't even tell you. And they actually passed a law. Well, I think when I first got started in bankruptcy, a lot of lawyers were steering people into what they do. Maybe they need a 13, but do a 7 because they don't want to do it. It's not a matter of what's good for but you're the client, right? What are your options? Make an informed decision. And I counsel you for that. If you qualify for 7 or 13 or Chapter 13 or partial payment, and it's like an IRS partial payment installment. You do Chapter 13, pay some bills in full, some pennies on the dollar. It's like doing a 7 and 13 at the same time, right? It's and some people won't do 11s because they're afraid of it, or also you have to be approved as an attorney to do a Chapter 11. You can't just file.
We've run out of time. Tell people how they can reach you.
Kevin Benjamin. BenjaminLaw.com or NobleTaxRelief.com. 312-853-3100. That's the law firm number. Or BenjaminLaw.com. All the information is right on there.
Well, I got to tell you, I've got so many more questions for you next month. Kevin will be back again with us next month. Kevin, have a good long weekend, holiday weekend, and we'll see you next month.
Look forward to it. Thanks,
Kevin. That's attorney Kevin Benjamin. Folks, if you've got an IRS problem or a bankruptcy problem, give Kevin a call. He's in the Chicago area. He handles all of Illinois. Hey, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.